In 1958, a group of agricultural students in England stood at the edge of a muddy field and watched a tractor start its engine, pull forward and begin plowing, with absolutely nobody sitting in the seat. No GPS, no AI, no computer chips, just wires buried in the dirt. And what happened next was so unsettling, the university tried to pretend it never happened. This is a story almost nobody knows. And honestly, it changes everything you think about self-driving technology. Okay, so here's the thing. When you hear self-driving, you probably think Tesla, maybe Waymo, maybe some slick Silicon Valley startup burning through billions of dollars trying to teach a car not to hit a pedestrian. But what if I told you the self-driving revolution didn't start in California? It didn't start in a lab. It didn't even start with cars. It started on a farm. In the 1940s, a man named Frank W. Andrew, just a regular guy, not an MIT engineer, not a tech billionaire, came up with a wild idea. He placed a barrel in the center of his field, attached a cable from it to the front steering arm of his tractor, and let it rip. As the tractor moved, the cable wound tighter around that barrel, pulling the steering just enough to guide the machine in slow spiraling circles across the entire field. No driver, no human hands. And here's the thing that should blow your mind. This was 1940, the same year the world was fighting World War II. Radar was still cutting edge. Computers didn't exist for regular people. And Frank Andrew already had a tractor driving itself. But wait. Frank Andrew's cable and barrel trick? That was just the warm-up. Because what happened in the next decade was far more ambitious and far more disturbing. In the 1950s, Ford Motor Company, yes, that Ford, built a driverless tractor prototype. They called it the Sniffer. That's a real name. I did not make that up. Now the name sounds goofy, but the technology was dead serious. The Sniffer could detect electrical signals running through wires buried underground and use those signals to steer itself through a field. No cable, no barrel, just invisible electric currents humming through the soil and a tractor smart enough to follow them. Think about that for a second. Ford in the 1950s had a functioning self-driving vehicle, decades before Google was even a word. So why have you never heard of it? Because Ford killed it. The whole project. Buried it like the wires underneath those fields. The reason? Running electrical wire under an entire farm was wildly expensive and impractical. Every time you plowed too deep, you'd rip the guidance system apart. One bad season, and your self-driving network was destroyed. Ford looked at the math, looked at the technology, and walked away. But someone else didn't. And this is where the story gets really interesting. While Ford was giving up in America, a team of agricultural engineers at Reading University in England said, essentially, we'll figure it out ourselves. Starting in the mid-1950s, they took a standard International Harvester B250 tractor, not some fancy prototype, just a regular production workhorse borrowed from the university's own farm, and they rebuilt it to drive itself. Their method? Same general idea Ford used. Wires buried in the ground carrying electrical current. But this team went further, way further. They mounted two sensors on the front of the tractor that could detect the buried guide wire and adjust the steering in real time. They built an emergency stop system that triggered when the tractor physically bumped into something. And this is the part that genuinely surprised me. They programmed different signals into different points along the wire, so the tractor would automatically know when to raise its plow for a headland turn, when to lower it again, when to engage the power takeoff, and when to stop completely. In roughly 1958, they rolled this thing out onto Sonning Farm and demonstrated it to a crowd of agricultural students. And the students were skeptical, like deeply skeptical. Imagine being a farmer in the late 1950s. You've spent your whole life behind the wheel of a tractor, 12-hour days in the seat, dust in your teeth, blisters on your hands, and some university professor tells you a machine can do it without you. That's not exciting. That's threatening. But the tractor worked. It plowed. It turned. It stopped. When it hit an obstacle, no driver, no remote control, just a machine, following invisible instructions in the ground. This was, by most accounts, the world's first truly functional driverless tractor, built by university researchers with a borrowed tractor and buried wires. In the 1950s, and then the university handed the project off. Just gave it away. Passed the entire program to the National Institute of Agricultural Engineering at Silso. Why? Probably because they didn't have the money or the mandate to take it further. But you have to wonder what would have happened if they'd kept going. Okay, so now it's the 1960s. Silso picks up the Reading project. They adapt the guidance system onto a Ford major tractor and keep testing. At the same time, a company down in Hampshire called Autotrac enters the scene. Autotrac had a commercial ambition that the academics didn't. They wanted to sell this technology. They developed their own buried wire guidance system, running on nothing more than a 12-volt battery, with wires sunk about 20 inches below the surface. And in 1969, the same year humans walked on the moon, Autotrac demonstrated a fully self-driving Massey Ferguson 165 tractor at the Royal Show. Let that sink in. The same year, Neil Armstrong set foot on the lunar surface. A tractor drove itself across a field in England. Two of the most futuristic things imaginable, space travel and autonomous farming, happening at the exact same time. But here's the cruel twist. Nobody cared. Well, not nobody. Some people cared, but not enough people. The buried wire system had real limitations. It was expensive to install. It was fragile. And most importantly, it couldn't handle every type of field work. Farmers needed flexibility, different crops, different patterns, different conditions every season. A fixed wire grid in the ground was too rigid for that reality. Autotrac's commercial dream quietly faded. Silso kept researching, but progress was slow, and the whole concept of driverless tractors drifted into a kind of technological limbo for the next 25 years. Meanwhile, in Nebraska, a farmer named Marcus Kane was so obsessed with controlling his tractors remotely that he built a tower on his farmhouse like an air traffic control cupola, so he could watch and theoretically command his machines from above. He spent decades on the concept, from the 1920s through the 1960s, and never cracked it. The technology just wasn't there yet. These people weren't crazy. They were early. Here's what's wild. After the 1960s and 1970s, driverless tractors basically vanished. Almost 3 decades passed before the next real breakthrough. It wasn't until 1994 that engineers at the Silso Research Institute, the same institution that inherited the Reading project, developed a picture analysis system that could guide a small driverless tractor through rows of vegetables. This time there were no buried wires. The tractor could literally see where it was going. It could handle headland turns and navigate crop rows with 2-centimeter accuracy. That's a massive jump, from wires in the ground to computer vision. But it took over 30 years to get there. Why? Because the technology in between didn't exist yet. The 1960s pioneers had the vision, the ambition, but the tools they needed hadn't been invented. GPS wasn't available for civilian use until the 1980s. Affordable computing power didn't arrive until the 1990s. Machine learning and AI, forget it. Those were science fiction. The people who built those first driverless tractors were essentially trying to build a smartphone in the age of the telegraph. And the fact that they got as far as they did is nothing short of remarkable. Then GPS and precision agriculture hit the farming world in the 1990s and 2000s, and things accelerated fast. Semi-autonomous tractors that only needed a driver for end-of-row turns. Then follow-me tractors that could mimic a lead vehicle driven by a human. Then in 2016, Case IH and New Holland both unveiled fully autonomous concept tractors. No cab, no steering wheel, no seat, just a machine and a mission. And in 2022, John Deere released what it called the first fully autonomous production tractor. A machine you can buy, set up, and let loose in your field while you monitor it from your phone. It took about 80 years to get from Frank Andrews' barrel and cable trick to a production robot tractor controlled by satellite. 80 years of stubborn visionaries, failed prototypes, killed projects, and quiet breakthroughs that the world ignored. So here's the part that sticks with me. We talk about self-driving technology like it was invented by Silicon Valley in the 2010s, like Elon Musk dreamed it up, like Google figured it out. And sure, the modern technology is extraordinary. The sensors, the AI, the processing power, that stuff is real and impressive. But the idea, the dream of a machine that works the land without a human sitting on top of it, that dream is almost a century old. It was born in the dirt, on small farms, by people whose names you'll never see in a tech headline. Frank Andrew with his barrel, the raiding university team with their borrowed international harvester, Marcus Kane watching his fields from a homemade tower, AutoTrack trying to sell autonomy in They didn't have venture capital, they didn't have TED Talks, they didn't have any of that. They just had a problem. Farming is brutally hard work, and an idea that the machines should do more of it. And they were right. They were just too early for the rest of the world to notice. Next time someone tells you self-driving is a new technology, you can tell them it's older than the space race, older than the internet, older than most of the people building it today. If this story surprised you, and I bet at least one part of it did, hit that like button. And if you want more stories about forgotten technology that was way ahead of its time, subscribe. I've got a few more of these that are going to absolutely wreck what you thought you knew. I'll see you in the next one.